Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 10 Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey 10 Man Taylor, and today I'm reacting to my second Midnight Tales video for you guys. This one's 4 disturbing true driving horror stories. So without further ado, I'm going to turn these lights off, move the camera up here for you guys, and let's get this reaction on the road and in the bag, shall we? Okay, here we go.
This happened about 2 years ago. I was on a long solo drive for work, about 5 hours total, and by the time I hit the road, it was already dark out. After about 3 hours, the tiredness really started to set in. You know that kind of heavy-eyed, zone-out feeling that even loud music and rolled-down windows can't shake?
I know what you mean. Even if we had the music playing in the car and the windows were rolled down, I still doze off. 5 hours. Golly. I'd be getting tired too if we had to drive that long.
I pulled into a gas station, grabbed some snacks and a strong coffee, thinking that'd do the trick. But caffeine only buys you so much time, and before long, I was right back to fighting to keep my eyes open. This particular stretch of road was super isolated, just dense pine forest on both sides, no streetlights, and I hadn't seen another car for a solid half hour. The only thing breaking the silence was the occasional bug splatting against the windshield. I was dangerously close to nodding off, and after a near miss where I swerved a bit onto the shoulder, I knew I had to stop now. I wasn't going to make it to the next town or even a real rest stop. I needed to find anything, a pull-off, a clearing, whatever, to catch a few minutes of sleep before I did something stupid. Thankfully, not even 10 minutes later, I spotted a small roadside turnout. It wasn't much, just one of those little gravel spots barely big enough for a single car, but it'd do. I pulled in, cracked the windows for some air, listened for any weird sounds, nothing but crickets, then rolled them up and locked the doors. I left the keys in the ignition just in case, took off my shoes, tossed them on the passenger seat, and laid my seat all the way back. It felt so good to finally close my eyes, and I was out like a light within seconds.
I bet it must feel good, but if you're parking in this sort of spot, I could guarantee somebody would just roll up and probably try to steal something off your car or wake you up and try to rob you. But I don't know what's going to happen here, so let's just continue to find out, shall we?
Next thing I know, I'm waking up to this harsh, blinding light in my face. At first, I thought maybe it was a flashlight, but no. It was the high beams of a car parked right behind me, aimed straight through my rear window. I blinked a few times, trying to figure out what was going on, and that's when I saw movement in my left side mirror. Some guy was walking up beside my car, just casually approaching like he had a question or needed help. He got to my rear door on the driver's side, and before I could even sit up or say anything, he grabbed the handle and started yanking on it like he was trying to rip the door open. I froze for a second, just pure panic, and then instinct kicked in. I leaned on the horn with everything I had, hoping it would scare him off, and it worked for a moment. He jumped back, startled, and that gave me just enough time to scramble to get my seat back up. The seat was fully reclined, so I had to half pull, half launch myself toward the steering wheel to even reach the pedals. I somehow got the car started and floored it out of there, tires squealing like something out of a movie. The seat was still almost flat, so I was driving half laying down with no back support, trying to stay on the road while adrenaline was taking over my whole body. As I peeled out of that turnout, I glanced in the rearview mirror, and that's when I saw him again. Not just him, though. 2 more guys were now standing next to him, just silhouettes in the headlights, and one of them had something in his hand. I couldn't tell exactly what it was, but it looked like a crowbar or maybe a wrench. Whatever it was, it definitely wasn't just for checking if I was okay. I didn't wait to find out. I sped down that road way over the limit, heart racing and hands shaking. About 30 minutes later, I finally found another gas station and pulled in to catch my breath. I adjusted the seat back to normal, slipped my shoes back on, and realized I'd only been asleep for about 10 minutes before all that happened. Strangely enough, I didn't feel tired at all after that. Shocker, right? The next day I told my boss about it, and he wasn't even surprised. Apparently, there'd been reports of what some people around here call road pirates, crews that target lone drivers on empty highways, especially ones that look like they might be sleeping in their cars. Could those guys have just been curious and wanted to help? Maybe. But then why didn't they knock on the driver's window or flash their brights a couple times? That thing in his hand could have been a flashlight, or it could have been something else entirely. Either way, I wasn't about to stick around to find out.
Well, I'm glad you didn't, because they didn't seem like they were going to help him with anything. They were going to help themselves by opening his car door and probably take whatever he had valuable and get back in their vehicle and drive off. But yeah, that would be something scary to wake up to for sure. And he's saying he didn't feel tired afterwards because, well, the adrenaline was still rushing through him. He just didn't feel like the need to sleep anymore. Thank God he did the right thing and just honked the horn and got his seat back up and drove out of there.
This happened a little over 20 years ago, and honestly, I still think about it every time I drive that stretch of road. It was Christmas Eve, and my girlfriend at the time and I had just left my aunt's place out in Estacada. My mom's side of the family used to do this big holiday get-together every year. Tons of food, drinks, poker games, present exchanges, the whole deal. It was actually the first time my girlfriend was meeting all of them, so I wasn't totally sure how she'd fit in, but she ended up getting along with everyone super well. We were both in high spirits when the night was winding down, but she'd had more than a few drinks by the end of it, so I was on designated driver duty. Around 11 p.m., we hopped in her car and started heading back home. We were taking Highway 211, which cuts through a lot of farmland and thick forest patches. That road doesn't have much lighting, but I grew up in the area and knew it like the back of my hand, so it didn't feel like a big deal. We were just driving through the dark, chatting and laughing, cruising along like it was any other night. Then we got to this part of the highway that slopes down a huge hill, crosses over Deep Creek, and then climbs back up through another forested stretch. This area is pitch black. No streetlights, no houses, just trees on both sides. The only thing lighting the way was our headlights. Right after we crossed the bridge at the bottom, as we were heading back up the hill, something darted across the road out of nowhere. I hit the brakes hard, barely avoiding whatever it was. I turned to my girlfriend like, "Did you see that?" And she nodded, but she looked just as confused as I was. We both saw something, but neither of us could tell what exactly it was. At first, we figured maybe a coyote or some other animal, but it moved weirdly, too fast and too deliberate. Not at all like a startled animal just trying to escape. So of course, for some reason that makes no sense in hindsight, I decide I want a better look. I flip the car around and turn on the high beams to light up the woods where the thing had run off. I step out of the car and walk toward the trees, trying to spot anything unusual, but it was just quiet, eerily quiet. No rustling, no night sounds, just that thick, tense silence that puts your nerves on edge.
I'll say it makes your nerves on tight edge, but would it be a smart thing to do just to turn around and go check to see what that was? No. I would have just forgot about it and kept on going and passed it off as probably a deer or something. So if he sees something out of the ordinary, start charging at him, he needs to get back in his car and turn that car around and go before he gets attacked.
I couldn't see anything, but something about the air just felt wrong. And then, out of nowhere, the car horn blares. One long, loud blast. Not a couple taps like, "Hey, come back," but a full-on beep that made me whip around and hurry back toward the car. I asked my girlfriend what the hell that was about, but she didn't even speak. She just pointed. About 50 feet from where I'd been standing, half hidden in the trees, there was a man, a completely naked man. His skin was covered in dirt and what looked like dried mud, and in one hand, he was gripping a hatchet. He wasn't charging or anything. He was just standing there, watching us. And then, I swear to you, he smiled. Just this slow, creepy smile. And waved, like we were neighbors passing on the street. Then he turned around and casually walked back into the forest like he didn't have a care in the world. I jumped back in the car, and we got the hell out of there. Once we were a few miles down the road, my girlfriend finally told me what had happened. While I was out in the woods, this guy had circled around from a different part of the forest, outside of the range of our headlights, and was heading toward me. She only noticed him because of a slight movement out of the corner of her eye, and when she looked, he was walking toward me with the hatchet raised like he was ready to swing it. That's when she slammed the horn. We called the cops once we made it home, and they sent someone out to check the area, but they either didn't find anything or didn't tell us if they did. The officer we talked to said it sounded like someone trying to ambush travelers, probably looking for anyone who was alone. We all agreed that my girlfriend's quick thinking likely saved my life. Now I live back in that area and drive Highway 211 pretty regularly. I haven't seen anything like that guy since, but I keep a sharp eye out whenever I pass through Deep Creek. There's just something about that spot that never really feels right anymore.
Wow, that was a close call. His girlfriend did not honk the horn and get his attention. He probably would have been a victim of this guy wielding a hatchet. And the fact that he said he was naked, covered in mud out there, he's a crazy lunatic, that's for sure. But I'm surprised the cops did not find anything that could lead him to where that guy was hiding at. But that is creepy. And you never know, he might have just killed somebody too and buried him somewhere. Well, who knows, right?
Okay, so this happened last year, and even now, thinking about it still makes my skin crawl. It was one of those nights that start out totally normal, like nothing weird is going to happen, and then it just flips on you, and you're left questioning everything. So, I do delivery driving for extra cash, Uber Eats, nothing fancy. It's not the best paying gig, but it works if you keep your expectations low and don't mind driving around at odd hours. Now, normally, I avoid doing late night runs because it's just not worth it. Low tips, sketchy vibes, and too many chances to run into weirdos. But on this particular night, there was this limited time bonus. If I completed 15 deliveries within a certain window, I'd get an extra $75.
Now, that ain't bad. You get a bonus for delivering food in a certain amount of time. Sounds like a good deal, right? Let's just continue on with this guy's story and see what happens next.
That was enough to get me out on the road late. I remember I was grinding through deliveries like a champ. Traffic was light. Roads were clear. It was actually kind of peaceful. I hit my 15th delivery at around 2:30 a.m., cashed out my bonus, and figured I'd call it a night. I was in downtown San Diego at the time, which is kind of a mixed bag. The central area is all nightlife and restaurants, but once you hit the outer edges, especially past 16th Street, it gets dicey. I usually steer clear of that area, but to get to the freeway and head home, I had to pass through it. One more detail that'll matter in a second. I drive this old 2002 Ford Focus, the kind where nothing is automatic. You have to roll the windows up and down by hand, which is annoying. So most of the time when I'm delivering, I just leave them down for convenience. That night was no different. I had both windows open and figured I'd roll them up once I got closer to the sketchy part. But I didn't get the chance. As I was heading toward the main drag, I turned onto this side street and noticed a guy up ahead wearing one of those orange reflective vests, like the kind road workers wear, and a hard hat. Didn't think much of it. There's always random construction around that area, even at weird hours. But as I got closer, he suddenly walked right into the street and started waving his arms, like he was trying to get me to stop.
No, don't do it. It's probably a trap. But yeah, he's right. Construction crews would stop around certain parts of the night And I was thinking at first maybe he was just getting off work. He had to finish a few things. But no, if he's waving you down, something's really going on. That ain't good. And he's probably not even a construction worker.
I slowed down instinctively, assuming he was rerouting traffic or something. I mean, he looked legit. I eased off the gas and started crawling forward, trying to figure out what he wanted. Then he jogged directly in front of my car and just stood there, blocking me from moving any farther. That's when it hit me. Something was way off. He wasn't acting like any traffic worker I'd ever seen, and that big, unsettling grin on his face, it wasn't friendly. It was wrong. Just pure frozen intensity, like he was too happy to see me. That's the only way I can describe it. Now that he was up close, I realized something else. The guy didn't seem like he was part of any crew. His clothes were dirty, his face was weathered, and he had this wild look in his eyes. My gut was screaming at me, but my body just locked up. I couldn't even bring myself to roll the windows up, even though every part of me wanted to. And then, no warning, he leaps onto the hood of my car, like full-on jumps and lands on it with a thud, slamming his fists against the metal. I'm sitting there frozen, gripping the steering wheel like it's gonna save me.
This is when you need to get out of your state of shock and hit the pedal to the metal and watch him fly off the car. And once you leave, call the cops, just so they can get to that area quick before he decides to take off.
While this man starts crawling around on my hood like some kind of deranged animal, eyes locked on mine the entire time. That smile never left his face. He didn't say a word, not one. He just kept pounding on the hood and crawling closer, not breaking eye contact once. It was like something out of a horror movie, and I was the idiot who didn't leave the theater when things got sketchy. I honestly don't know what would have happened if another car hadn't come down the road at that exact moment. I saw headlights in my rearview mirror, and apparently so did he, because the second he spotted them, he jumped off the hood and bolted toward the car behind me like he was trying to get their attention next. That was my cue. I hit the gas and got the hell out of there. Didn't look back. Didn't breathe until I was halfway down the freeway, heart pounding like crazy. After that, I made some changes. I don't do late-night deliveries anymore. I avoid that side of downtown altogether, even if it means taking a longer route home. And now, even if it's a quick trip, my windows stay up. Period. What really messed me up wasn't just the scare. It was how easily I trusted someone just because they looked official. Reflective vest and hard hat? Cool. Must be safe, right? Nope. I didn't question it at all until it was too late. And the thing that chills me most is wondering what his plan was. Why dress like that? Why try to make people stop? I'll never know what he really wanted. And honestly, I'm just glad I didn't stick around to find out.
Yeah, a lot of people could buy those reflective vests and hard hats at any store nowadays. But then what did he want? I don't know, unless he was trying to plan on breaking through the windshield to get him and probably rob him of his car or belongings, or worse, kill him. Who knows? It's crazy to think that sickos like that would dress up like official workers and use that to their advantage just to stop you and do something terrible to you. But thank God he hit the pedal to the metal and got out of there. All right, let's get to the final story.
I'm originally from Portland, Oregon, and I just landed a scholarship to a school out in Washington, D.C. Great opportunity, totally stoked. But there was no way I could afford to ship my car and fly with my cello, which was basically my ticket to that scholarship in the first place. So I made the bold decision to pack up my old '91 Toyota Previa. Yep, that weird egg-shaped minivan, and hit the road. I mapped it all out. 4 days of non-stop hustle, sleeping in the car, dollar menu meals, and praying to every known god that the car would survive the journey. Spoiler alert, it did, but just barely. By day 2, reality hit me like a truck. 16-hour drive days will do that to you. I was somewhere out near Missoula, Montana, trying to find a place to crash for the night that wasn't going to get me robbed or worse. ended up parking in a sketchy hospital lot, which somehow felt less sketchy than the gas stations and dark side roads I'd passed. I was running on fumes, mentally and physically, and trying to keep it together while leaving voicemail updates for my parents every time I stopped, since I couldn't afford a cell phone back then. I'm not even exaggerating when I say some stretches of road had no sign of life for over 12 hours. You had to literally bring extra gas because it was so remote. Fast forward to somewhere near the South Dakota and Nebraska border. Can't even tell you exactly where. That's when I saw this little church sign advertising a free community spaghetti dinner. I was like, yes, universe, feed me. I pulled over, figured I'd help set up to pass the time, and maybe even score a to-go plate. Everyone there was super sweet, so welcoming, and the spaghetti was genuinely good. Next thing I know, the pastor and a couple of the locals are offering me a place to crash for the night. They had cots down in the preschool area of the church basement, and I was so beyond exhausted I would have said yes to sleeping on gravel. So I get settled in down there, build myself a little fort out of cots and preschool pillows, and honestly, I was so relieved to not be sleeping cramped up in the van again. It wasn't ideal. Dark preschool, religious murals on the walls staring at you. But hey, free bed. At some point in the middle of the night, I wake up. Something just felt wrong. I heard footsteps. Not like distant ones. These were inside the building. They weren't coming toward me, but more like wandering. And that's when it hit me. I forgot to call my dad. Nobody knew where I was. Not even I knew what town I was in. I quietly put on my shoes and tried to sneak toward the stairwell, thinking maybe there was an emergency exit or something I could slip out of. I was shaking. Every noise echoed. Just as I was trying to make my way up and out, I heard someone shout, "Hey!" And the next thing I knew, someone grabbed the back of my shirt. I felt this ice-cold hand brush my back and then, rip, my spaghetti strap snapped. I didn't even turn around. I somehow slipped out of my button-down shirt and just bolted. No idea how I pulled that off. Pure adrenaline. I ran into the dark, one shoe flying off along the way, and sliced my foot open on something in the grass. But I couldn't stop. I just kept running until I reached my van, jumped in, and tore out of that parking lot like my life depended on it. The only other car in sight was a sedan in the pastor's driveway. I didn't stop until daylight broke, and even then, I only pulled over to get gas when I physically couldn't drive anymore. To this day, I have no idea who that person was, or what their intentions were, but I've never felt that kind of raw fear before or since. I think about it sometimes and wonder how different that night could have gone. But I made it to DC, somehow in one piece, and never looked back.
Hey, if you see a sign that they're having a free meal over at a church, I know you'd be driving over there to get a meal. I mean, I would too. But then if they offer also for you to stay the night in the church, I'll be like, yeah, I need some sleep. Don't want to sleep in the van. But then if something like that happens, I'll be like, what in the world's going on? But I'm thinking it was probably somebody else that took the offer of staying the night in the church and got up, and I don't know what he was doing, but scared the crap out of that guy, it seems like. But thankfully he got out of there and drove on to DC where he needed to go. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications for more Midnight Tales reactions like this. This has been another successful installment of the Tim Man Score channel. I'm your host, Jeffrey Tim Man Taylor, and I say that's a wrap, and have a nice day, all.